I think pain or frustration is most is probably the best driver or the most common driver. When people, sometimes it's because they flatline.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because they come up against a major barrier. They're kind of stumped. And I think that they know intuitively they've got so much in reserve, so much latent potential. It's just dormant.
Yeah.
And it's like, surely I can do better than this.
Yeah.
And and a breakthrough is a different animal.
Yeah.
It's different. I think everybody kind of has goals. Sometimes they don't do anything better than a lame New Year's resolution, but everybody wants something. Everybody. We're born with that instinct, and it's
Yeah.
good. That's what makes the human race survive and progress and everything. But I think every individual has some of that. Some of us, we just have more of it to begin with. We got more of a need for achievement, but we're just kind of born that way and raised that way. And some people um, have a much higher level of comfort with where they are, and they want a peaceful, low challenge existence. That's perfectly fine. Everybody has the potential for a quantum leap. Well, a quantum leap is a different thing. Like I referenced a minute ago, it's different than ordinary goals, normal kinds of goals. A couple of days ago, I thought, okay, we're going to be talking. Now, what's the difference between reasonable goals and quantum leap goals? Well, the
Yeah.
first one is just that. Most people's goals are fairly reasonable, and a quantum leap is pretty unreasonable. Usually, a, a reasonable goal, you or a regular goal, it's in that general category of where people typically live and set their aspirations. Okay, so one's reasonable, quantum leap's unreasonable. It's you're reaching beyond what seems obvious or the next incremental practical step on the career ladder, so to speak. The next thing is you usually kind of know pretty well how to reach a regular goal. With a quantum leap goal, you don't know how to reach it. You don't know how. Secondly, with a regular goal, you you can see the resources. You set that goal because you look at your available resources and you think, I've got this, I can do that. I can see that the world would let me do that, so that's what I'm going to go for. With a quantum leap goal, you don't have the available resources. You
Mm.
walk in with blatant, obvious constraints. Okay. Next, with the regular goal, you've engineered your ambition so that you expect low number of mistakes or no mistakes.
Yeah.
With a quantum leap goal, mistakes are a key part of the process. That's a real twist. Next, I mean, you use them, you exploit them. Okay. Next, with a regular goal, trying harder probably works. It's a trap when you're shooting for a quantum leap goal. Trying different,
Yeah.
trying differently, I guess to say it properly, trying differently is the secret. And usually you end up, the game is easier. And then one finally, I would say the big difference is with regular goals, you can usually stay in your comfort zone. That's the big reason why you picked it in the first place. So you get to stay in your comfort zone. With a quantum leap, it's taking you on a ride. You will get pulled by yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's good because that's where growth happens. If you want to make a quantum leap, you need to be sharply pointed rather than well-rounded. You know, you show me someone who is number one, number two, number three in their field. They probably didn't get there or remain there by being well-rounded. Quantum leap goal Well, I used to call it selfish, and I had an Australian guy that was going through one of our courses, and he said, "I don't like that word. That just sounds bad, selfish, you know." And I said, "Okay, well, let me put it this way: Quantum Leap goals have a big appetite. They want all of you, and it's not like that you're going to have to spend the rest of your life this way. But if you're wanting to win the Super Bowl,
Yep.
I'm sorry, the kids."
Yep.
Want to go trick or treating or they want to do this. I'm sorry, kids. I've got game day coming up, or there's a recital. You make sacrifices to achieve, just leverage up to an entirely different level of performance. But
Yep.
people do that, and you change your game, and it requires pretty much all of your cylinders to be focused on that. So here's how it would play. I'll be doing several of these a week. And so let's say on Monday, here comes Canada Day. And he's going to spend 5, 6 hours with us, going through some testing, working up, an in-depth interview with me and so forth. And so you'd see this guy, and he's a successful guy. He's got a lot of assets going for him, a lot of personal strengths and so forth. Okay, then Tuesday comes along. Here comes another candidate. Okay. And you look at this thing right off the bat and you see that this guy, it's not the same company he's applying for. He's over here somewhere else, but he's the same age. His academic credentials are certainly every bit as good as this guy's. He packages himself just as well as this guy. His personality is just as congenial and seems skilled with people, all of this. But this guy is making 2 or 3 times what the first guy was. And you're like, okay, so what's going on? This guy made some different choices. And when did that happen? Why did that happen? Because it's not because of potential. There's something else there. Okay, so I would see that for a while. But then I came to Dallas and I started my own company in 74. And I took us into merger work after a few years, which was a whole different altitude of the game. But I began to see the same peculiar dynamic. Here's because we had a variety of clients cut across all kinds of industries and everything. And so here's the story, or the anecdote I'll give that kind of makes the point. So let's say you got a $500 million company. It's rocking along. It's doing nicely. It's growing about 6, 7% just organic growth per year. That's company A. Okay. And then I'm working with, let's say, company B over here. And company B happens to be in the same industry. And it's knocking down about $500 million a year in revenues also. And its growth rate is pretty much the same, just good, steady, organic growth. Shareholders are fairly happy, But all of a sudden, one day, company A goes out and buys company C, which is another $500 million company. And just like that, company A has doubled in size. That's a quantum leap. They didn't get it. They didn't get there by working harder. And that's a mistake that they did it by changing the game. Yep. They had to step out of their comfort zone. And frankly, I can tell you, trust me, they didn't totally know how they were going to do it because these things are living, changing deals. And you're not going to get it perfect. You kind of do some degree of stumbling through an integration process, kind of like you do when you make a quantum leap. Try to get it perfect and you'll never get it at all with a quantum leap. So I'd seen this with individual executives. One's making 2 or 3 times the other one, but you can't see any obvious reason why. Company A, company B, same size, all of a sudden they're very different. One is just shot so far past the other one. And I'm thinking, all right, now that's fun to think about. And I sat down and I did my doctoral dissertation on self-directed change and fast growth, breakthrough performance.
Yep.
And I had read 25 or more books on success, self-improvement, all of that kind of stuff, all the classics, the Napoleon Hills, all of those. And I love those books. I still love those books. And at the time, they were totally ignored by professional psychology. I was going through a PhD program. Those books were never mentioned. I thought, this is absurd. But anyway, so because these books tell people how to improve themselves. They don't have to have a therapist, a PhD psychologist, or counselor with them. So anyway, I sat down and I thought, if I'm going to write a book that I think people will actually read and finish and maybe even reread and talk to their friend or whatever coworker about. And so I sat down and I wrote U Squared. And when I finished, it was like this tiny little book. But I have a serious bias toward tightness, the tightness of the message, so people don't get lost. You give them what they need to execute. And it kind of is manifested also in the coaching program that we'll be doing, because our approach is very much minimum effective dose. What's the least effective dose that gets the job done? And so U Squared turned out to be, 37 pages with a good bit of white space. There was a study done, I think it's 2022, that found the average adult completes only 46% of our country's adult population complete one book a year. That's 46% that complete at least one book. I wanted a book that people would read. And then I wanted them to think. The book gives them space to think, time to think. And then it comes down, execute. I wrote the book in 1989. It sells more today than it has ever sold. That little handbook, 37 pages of content, has produced easily well over $3 million. And like you were saying, the typical book sells 5,000, 6,000 copies. And I think, and it's got this cult following all over the globe. India, it's a big book in India. The research proves big goals work better than medium goals or small goals. That may sound counterintuitive, but that's what the research says. Big goals work better than small goals. Goals that are harder create more commitment, more discipline, better execution. They bring out more of what's good in you. So the process, I think there's some initial really being cranked up, but there's always day two, right? There's always day two. And then people get scared of themselves. What have I done? Susie Kassam, the poet, said, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. I think one of the things that our coaching will be doing is helping people through those dark times. I think people have to, and another thing we help them do is reconceive failure. Rethink what failure is. Like I said, If you're shooting for a regular goal, you've pretty much engineered big mistakes, failures, setbacks. You've tried to engineer those out. It's not the case when you're going for a quantum leap. You're going through a discovery process, a learning process, and forward motion is the fastest education you can have going for you.
Yep.
And so the mistakes are there to guide you toward what's next, what's next, what's next. I think I just wrote a blog just a few days ago about the 4 levels of a quantum leap. And I got to thinking about this, kind of what do people go through? Where do they kind of end up or whatever? And it's like level one. Level one is doubting. This is where people, they really love the idea of a big breakthrough, but they focus on what could go wrong, how hard this could be, and will I make a fool out of myself? They don't focus, and all the constraints that they can see. That's where their focus goes. They focus on potential losses as opposed to potential gains. And they say, well, I need to do some more planning. I need to get ready. And you may have heard me say in just some of our conversations, Coach, that getting ready is the graveyard where big dreams go to die. There's not a lot of getting ready for a quantum leap. You very quickly start get going. And that is the key secret. That's one of the insider secrets of how you do this. So there's level one, that's doubting. Level two is dabbling. It's where people, they're kind of putting their toe in the water. They're not trying differently. There's no real hardcore commitment. So they're just kind of messing around with it. It may be that they don't really have that clear and well-defined of an aiming point. It may be that they are playing with 6 goals at the same time, whatever. But the main thing is they don't really move off of their old game into a new game. So level 1, level 2, level 3, things are much better here because this is driving. Level 3 is driving. They're actually trying differently. They're experimenting, and all is good. And they're beginning to focus more on their thinking is better. They're staying more in the optimistic zone. They're listening to their hero voice as opposed to their villain voice that's, talking them down in the first 2 stages. And they're making progress. They are still vulnerable to setbacks and failures, or lowering their ambitions maybe. But these guys, got to give them credit. They're in the game. But level 4 is where you want to get to. Level 4 is determined. 4 is I am all in on this new game I'm playing. I have X'd out of my life a lot of things that keep me stuck in the old game. I've created white space to do things differently. I am sharply focused, and God, I'm going to get there. Okay. Now, here's the most interesting thing about level 4. You need to be really keep your spider senses alive, because strange good things come out of nowhere. This is where coincidences happen. There's a lucky break. Here's someone you never dreamed of this thing happening, but life offers you something better than you had even originally planned. Your field of vision is better. Your sense of hope is much fuller, and you have far better grasp of what you're capable of doing. But it's like serendipities come along.
Yeah.
And there was a novel written by Ann Patchett some years ago. It's a good novel, but there was this line in it that stopped me cold. I wrote it down and I've used it before. But the line is, never be so focused on what you're looking for that you fail to see what you actually found. When you're in level 4, it's a much more expansive life you're living. And the way you're behaving and the way you're thinking and the way you're managing yourself and your interactions with other people, they see you differently and things come to you that wouldn't have when you're in other spheres of life. The old Nike slogan, just do it. Do the work and the world will show you how.
Yep.
It's really fascinating, but we will teach people about the importance of going where you have to go. I mean, physically, you got to quit just dreaming and planning and thinking about it. It does it takes action and it takes relentless pursuit. But one of the books we'll give some time to in the program is this dumb little book I ran across at a train station in London. I was over there doing some work for General Electric, some merger work, as I recall. And I was waiting for the train, and here's this little newsstand thing there. And I'm always looking at books, see some new idea or something. And there's this ugly little paperback book. It's called Bunkhouse Logic. And I don't even know why I picked it up, but I did. But I love this little book. It's been renamed now. It's still out there. I can't remember what the new name is on it. But anyway, the one key message in this book is you can't win if you're not at the table. You've got to go to the table. And so the table in this case was, well, the table was here. It was, and us getting together, and you showed that initiative, you showed that drive, and that, putting energy and action behind an ideal, an ambition, a plan. The research shows, that we weigh losses greater than gains, even what we think are potential losses versus potential gains. And major psychologists won the Nobel Prize in economics because of this research that found this. But it turns out that we weigh losses or potential losses twice as heavily as potential gains. So what this says is you're sitting here trying to make a decision. Oh, gee, I might waste my money. Oh, I might bomb out. I'm not, my friends, relatives may make fun of me for doing this and calling me stupid. Again, it gets back to listening to your hero voice and weighing the potential upside more dutifully. People see, it's kind of funny. And other psychological research shows that when we talk about risk, and that's what you're talking about here, Coach, is should I risk spending this money on this course or whatever? Decisions about risk taking, they're mainly not made by this rational, analytical part of your brain. They're made by the emotional part of your brain. And that takes us right straight to this weighing losses much more heavily than the potential upside. So I think if a person will step back and say, okay, I'm going to be fair about this. What do I stand to gain? What could this bring about in a positive direction, as opposed to overweighing, just a really seriously lopsided weighing of the pros and cons? we're going to have some really good times and we're going to change some lives.